Hey, you guys. Hope everyone is doing well. Okay, so it is January 22nd, 2025. And earlier today, if you had watched it, I did the Cordell Wright, aka King, interview. He actually took the stand for the preliminary interview. Okay, so this one right here, her name is Talisha Moore. All right. So she is now on the preliminary stand. Okay. In case you missed it. Now, remember on January 9th, Jarvis King, remember King is Cordell Wright. So Jarvis King and Neziah, they went to drop the Jaguar off. Now, King's son, this is his grandmother that he fixed her Jaguar. So they were doing her a favor so she wouldn't have to get, additional towing fees and dropping her Jag off to her. So Talisha, she is the aunt of King's son, the sister, all right, of King's son's mother. Okay, so now we got that out the way. So now the interviewer asked Talisha if she sees Jarvis in the courtroom. She says, quote, "Yes, I can only see the top of his head right now," end quote. Now, he has his head put down. He always has his head down. They rarely show him, but if you do see him, his head is down. The judge asked everyone in the courtroom, I think it was a judge or it might have been, another interview, I'm not sure, but someone had asked everyone in the courtroom who had on masks to remove them for a moment. Then she identified Jarvis. He had came several times in the past to her mother's home. Now, King had came with other people, maybe one other person, but she does remember him coming with Jarvis several other times. So she knew who he was. They were cordial. I mean, this was all a business arrangement. She was, paying him money for helping fixing cars or whatever. So they were cordial. They had a um a business friendship, I guess you call that. Okay, so on the 9th, the day that Neziah would disappear, King, Jarvis, and Neziah, they were inside the home. Talisha said she didn't know who Neziah was and wasn't quite sure if she was introduced by name. She does know that Jarvis said, "This is my niece." She cannot recall if he said, "This is my niece, Neziah," or "This is Neziah," but he did say, "This is my niece." It was just small conversations. She offered, a beverage to Neziah. She turned it down. She was just mainly interacting with Talisha's 6-year-old nephew, I guess because they're very close in age. And again, he described her as a niece. She wasn't sure if the name was said. Sometimes these questions could get very repetitive. In the 41 minutes, most of these interviews are 41 minutes. This was actually less. So within I'm going to say 20, 25 minutes, two different people will be interviewing and they'll say the same damn questions as if you're going to answer differently. If you're telling the truth, you're not going to answer differently. Okay? So they asked, was there anything unsettling and concerning about Neziah? She said no. She just sat there in the chair by the TV and again interact with the other little kid that was there. And it was brought up that the police had came and asked questions about that day. She again said she wasn't sure about the name, but was introduced that this was Jarvis's niece. They all left. That means, all three of them, they all left and they got into King's car. She said she did not know what the seating arrangement was. Everybody wants to know the damn seating arrangement, but she did not know what the seating arrangement was. She just knew that they were all gone. Now, side note, remember in King's interview, he drove his own car because Jarvis was on the passenger side and Neziah, she sat in the back behind King. And remember, there was no talking because he has sounds in his whip. So there was no talking. So there was more engagement on past conversations that Talisha had with Jarvis, which was all basic, and more discussions about the Jaguar. And, Did it get told from the mother's house? And what time? Yada, yada. I didn't understand why that line of questioning was being asked, but I guess they know, right? They know. So now they discussed Nazia's clothing. She couldn't recall what this girl was wearing. They asked what was King and Jarvis wearing. She couldn't recall what they were wearing too. I guess if they had, some kind of mechanic suit on, she would have remembered that, like matching suits, but they probably didn't since this was a shop that they were owning. So she said she could not recall what they were wearing, but she did remember that Nazia did have a jacket on. Now, if it was like January 9th, and Nazia had like a tank top on and, some culottes. Do they still wear culottes? Well, some shorts, okay, and some flip-flops. And it's January 9th in Detroit, Michigan. That would probably have stand out. She'd be like, you know what? That baby was underdressed. And I was like, aren't you cold? But that's not what happened. She had a jacket on and she couldn't remember anything else. It wasn't for her to really remember anything else. This was just supposed to be a brief, quick visit. That was it. He even asked, did she have a large living room? She said it was fairly large. And were the lights on? Okay. And then more questions about, Nazia. Oh gosh, just nothing that was even concerning or why are you asking this? Again, who was driving? And again, did she think anything out of the ordinary was going on? She said no. But the next day, they were contacted by King because they were short $70 on the services that had already been rendered, and they got Jarvis's Cash App information and they sent the remaining balance. So in March, they talked about how the police came to speak to them, and she told them that she only knew the little girl as the mechanic's niece. After the police left, she did look up the information now about Nazia. They also went back to asking, where did Denise sit? In the chair by the TV. Did she have to use the bathroom? No, she did not. She turned down the beverage. Now, King was on tether, and he had to be home at a certain time, so they all left. And I'm taking it tether's like some type of probation situation, like I don't think he had on one of those monitors, but he had to be home at a certain time. Maybe they called. I don't know. But it's tether there in Detroit, Michigan. And he had to just be home for whatever he did. And he was going to make sure that he was getting home. So I guess this was mainly more for Jarvis's situation because she didn't know much of what was going on. It was an average night for her and her mother, which would later find out it wasn't an average night for others, but she couldn't give information that she didn't really have. Like, how big is your living room? Like, it's so far that you couldn't tell who this girl was inside your house. And of course the lights is on. You have company. Of course the lights is on. You have a little girl and another man that you fairly know because he fixes your... Of course the lights is on. Okay? So, I don't know, maybe they're trying to act like this was a totally different person. I'm not sure. But that's pretty much kind of what happened. And in King's interview already, it was proven that that was Nazia because King knew who Nazia was. Even though he knew that that was Jarvis's niece, he still knew that that was Nazia. And I know one thing, that she knew exactly who Jarvis was. Head down, mask on, haircut, head behind his lawyer's back. She knew. Even enough that that was Jarvis. Even though King, this is his business partner of 2 to 3 years, and he said that he was not in the room, but, she knew who he was. I know one thing, this trial is going to be nuts. I can already tell. I can already tell. Justice for Nazia.